right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of KC Laboratory, brought to you by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. My name is Craig Stout, and with me, as always, is the greatest co-host that I could ever ask for, Mr. Matthew Lane. He's not going to listen. Kent's not going to listen, Maddie, so I feel very confident saying that today. Maddie, how are you doing today?
Listen, I appreciate it when you ask me. I feel really special when you do that. I'm doing great. Thank you. I spent yesterday down at Carowinds theme park, amusement park here in North Carolina. It was kind of an overcast, cool day for the time right now. So it was pretty amazing. We got through the entire park essentially. It was a good time. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm riding the highs. We got Chiefs football later this week, Craig. I mean, listen, your greatness rubs off on me. It helps make me a very good co-host. I don't know if I'd say the greatest. I'd say very good because, we know where it stems from. However, I'm excited to be joined by you today, and I'm excited to start talking football as we are less than 7 days away from the Chiefs putting on the pads and facing off against another team.
I mean, we are so close from watching Josh Simmons bully somebody that's not a Chief. Like we're going to get to see him throw down somebody, whether that be first team, second team, who cares? He's going to get to take out that violence against somebody that's not named Leo Chanel, and I don't have to fear for how that is going to end up for either player. I'm really, really excited that we are here. We have spent all offseason talking about what this is going to look like. All of this first preseason game is the one that matters to me, honestly. It just kind of feels like, hey, football's here, football's started. It feels good. And then after that, I'm ready to accelerate to the regular season. We get to make all sorts of jumps to conclusions, people on the depth chart, all of that.
Never.
You would never. And speaking of that depth chart, we got a new one this week. We got our first preseason week 1 depth chart. It got released by the Chiefs. We all know that this depth chart matters very, very, very
hold on.
extremely little.
Big NFL trade. Breaking news. Big NFL trade. The Raiders are sending cornerback Jacorian Bennett to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for defensive tackle Thomas Booker.
Bro, oh my goodness. You know what? The funny part is I liked both of those players coming out of the draft. I really did. I have takes on both of them.
Firmly in the era where we're going to have takes on like everybody in the NFL right now because of the draft guide. Literally because of the draft guide now, like you're phasing out the people that were before the KCS and draft guide going on. And so we now generally have takes on just about everybody besides the running back the 49ers signed earlier because I didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
But
Jacorian Bennett, tier 1 guy. Just saying.
Was he? I knew he had to be close.
Yeah, he was.
Maryland
he barely slipped in there.
Cooking him up. But, hey, the Raiders need a D tackle after Christian Wilkins. Just that. I mean, that's hey, it was there. It popped up on the timeline. I'm sorry to interrupt with that. We can get back to the depth chart now.
Thomas Booker was fun. He was a fun player in college. Yeah. Neither one of those teams really got better. Let's be honest here. They didn't really get better. They just got more depth. But unofficial depth chart. Chiefs have released it. We see this change very drastically throughout the course of the preseason, and then eventually, it gets to week 1, and even that depth chart only matters to a certain extent here, but it is our first peek into how the coaching staff is at least, preliminarily ranking these guys ahead of preseason week 1. So, it's August now. Let's fill some time and let's talk a little bit about this depth chart, Maddie.
Let's go.
You have anything right now, again, keeping in mind that this is all subject to change as the preseason goes along. You have anything that jumps out at you about the depth chart right off the rip here?
Yes. First of all, this is a training camp depth chart that is filled out probably by not the coaching staff with minimal input from the coaching staff. So let's get that out of the way. Okay, we know this is not official. We know this isn't even going to like relate to the first preseason game we are about to see. This isn't even like that when guys were brought in or anything like that. We would just get all out of the way. That said, something that stood out to me, Felix Anudike-Uzomah is listed behind some rookies at the defensive end position. He's listed behind just about everybody he could possibly be listed behind. And if you look through the rest of the depth chart, all the other rookies, besides Josh Simmons, of course, are kind of pushed to the back of their position groups, right? So to see Gelati ahead of Felix, even on the same line, like the way this is broken down, they kind of have like a left and right defensive end. It's not just like 1 through 8 or whatever it is. Break it up, but they're in the same quote unquote defensive inside behind Mike Dana. Then it goes Ashton Gelati, and then it's Felix Anudike-Uzomah. And like, I don't know. I'm not trying to read too much into it. However, to be a third-round rookie that gets tossed up in front of a guy that was a former first-round pick, maybe I'm reading into that one just a little bit.
Yeah, and I get that. The clips that we've seen from Felix have been just kind of fine. Out of training camp, it's not been bad. It's not been good. It's just kind of been there. I don't know. This one caught my eye as well, especially when you think about how they don't really play sides. These guys switch around quite a bit as well. So even though you're looking at this and you're going, oh, he's only third on the depth chart, he's probably still making the roster, which he is. He's probably being viewed behind Ashton Gelati at this point, behind Charles Omenihu, behind George Karlaftis, behind Mike Dana. Now you've got him in a competition with Malik Herring. And that's not where you would hope that in year 3, your first round rookie that's got terrific burst, got terrific bend, has been putting in the work, getting better in the run game. That's not where you would hope that you would see him. And again, like Maddie referenced here, this isn't necessarily put together by the coaching staff. It's put together by somebody in the building. A first round draft pick that needs his confidence built, even if it's put together by somebody in the building, it's run through people who are on the lookout for those sorts of things. Hey, don't put that guy there yet. We're working on some things. We don't want him to feel like he's already earned the starting job, et cetera, et cetera. Felix being this far down the depth chart is not great for his confidence. It's not great for his outlook. There's a whole lot of things that I look at here that are very concerning. Now, does Felix need to play a lot of snaps in the preseason? Absolutely. I think we've all been clamoring for him to get more time, get more reps, get snap timing down, for God's sake, please. Those are the sorts of things that he needs to work on. So maybe this is the explanation that I can come up with here that's rationale, that's still okay for Felix. Maybe this is a situation where they're saying, hey, we're going to rotate some of these guys in early, but Felix, you are playing. We are going to play you a lot in week 1. We're going to play you a lot in week 2. We're going to play you a lot in week 3. We're getting you a ton of reps. Yeah, you're still pretty secure and solid on this team, but we're placing you in this spot. So that way, when we're doing wholesale swaps on the depth chart, we're doing wholesale swaps all the way through second and third teams, you are making sure that you're getting the most reps. Mm-hmm. That's really the only silver lining that I can look at here. And even that is a little bit of a reach, Maddie.
Yeah, and it makes sense to get him reps, but again, Gelati also needs a little bit of reps, right? Yep. You wouldn't say that he wouldn't, and he's listed in front of him and stuff like that. I don't know. It's worth noting. It also, to me, and I haven't been at camp, just talking to people and going off of clips, it doesn't seem like it's particularly out of left field to have him listed below Gelati on the depth chart based on just the teams and the units that I have kind of seen or heard of being run out there for him. So that one seems like it might actually run parallel to what the rotation has been for the majority, not all, but the majority of training camp. And it's a position that rotates a lot. And I still don't think going into year 3 now that we are at risk of Felix being cut, especially because when you look around that defensive end room, there's not a lot of bodies.
Not a lot.
But it doesn't feel like he's making strides to really take control of his spot in the rotation. And when they continue to add players like a Gelati to the mix, and then he's going to quickly fall behind him if that's how it plays out, that's rough. So yeah, I don't think it means anything for sure. I think as we go through preseason, he should probably play a lot still, because Dana doesn't need to play a lot. George doesn't need to play a lot. Omenihu, you probably don't want playing a lot, right? You're running out of bodies. So he's probably going to play plenty regardless of where he falls at on this roster spot or on this depth chart. So yeah, that one's just the biggest one that caught my eye. This is a year 3 guy. This is a guy going into essentially where rookies start to make their case to get extended and he's fighting from the bottom end of the defensive end rotation. I don't know. That one stuck out to me.
And he's working. Like he's working. We see the strides that he's making in things like the run game, as we've talked about this, throughout the season. Like it's not like he's not working. So what is it that's not clicking? That's what immediately throws up my, my spidey senses or whatever you want to call them there. It just makes me wonder what's going on there. My guy, second year guy here that I looked at, Jared Wiley. Jared Wiley is currently fourth on the depth chart, and this is less about the depth chart. It's kind of about the depth chart, but less about the depth chart than it is the whole of camp right now. We haven't heard anything about Jared Wiley. It's been very, very minimal that we've heard about him integrating into the offense. We've heard a lot about Jake Briningstool. Is it Briningstool or Briningstool? I don't know. I've only seen it. Tucker, you want to step in here? Which one is it?
I was called
Briningstool.
It's Briningstool. Okay. So anyway,
it looks like it should be Briningstool. I mean, I get your confusion here, but
see,
Briningstool doesn't
what does the
sound
pronunciation
right.
guide say? What is it? What do we have?
I don't have the pronunciation guide up, and frankly, maybe I should, but
I'll get there. You keep talking. I'll get there.
Anyway, but we've heard a lot about Jake, Big Jake. We've heard a lot about him so far in his contribution in camp. We've heard a lot about Noah Gray. We know Travis Kelce's very secure here. It's Big Bob Tonyan. Robert Tonyan is now above Jared Wiley in the depth chart. We've heard a little bit about Tonyan, but not anything about Wiley. This is a guy that they drafted last year, coming off of a serious injury, and definitely the case. But a guy that we heard about last year that they wanted integrated into the system is more of a move tight end, a guy that has the ability to get vertical on the seam, working on blocking still, but a guy that you can use as a move tight end position a little bit more. Jared Wiley's been just kind of absent all along, and now he shows up. He's behind a guy that they just drafted, or not drafted, but just signed in the offseason this year in Robert Tonyan. And now you've got another guy that they brought in as a rookie that's gaining all this hype and getting run with the first team. Jared Wiley's, basically non-story all offseason is becoming a little bit bigger of a story for me, Maddie.
So big news. Unfortunately, Chiefs don't think that Briningstool is complicated enough to make the pronunciation guide. So we are just fooled for no reason, according to them. I just want to get that out there first and foremost. Next, back to Jared Wiley. Yeah, I mean, he is coming off of a significant injury, right? And for a Big 12 tight end who recently-ish converted from quarterback to tight end, having to miss an entire rookie year in the NFL while still undergoing a position change and then adjusting to the NFL, it would make sense that he probably, after that ACL tear, might need an extra year, right? You can't expect him to be Travis Kelce, and just because he has a year missed with an injury, he's going to hit the ground mostly running that sophomore season like Kelce kind of did after the microfracture surgery as a rookie. So it makes sense for his timeline to be a little delayed. It makes sense for him to be working back to be 100% healthy, but two, picking up a new offense and playing tight end in an entire different way than he learned to play at TCU, right? So there's a lot going on there. The problem is it's the NFL. They don't have time to wait. They can't wait on you when you're unproven. They can't wait on you when we're still not even operating on this point on significant flashes. We just had a tiny little bit to go on with him. They bring in Briningstool, who they generally seem to be pretty happy with during camp. Word was early on during the non-padded stuff and OTAs that he looked pretty good for the position, and he provides something similar to Jared Wiley, and albeit a different package, but both guys are really tall red zone targets that you're mostly using as a receiving third or fourth kind of tight end. So I don't know. And then you add in Rob Tonyan, who's the blocker and also kind of a tall, kind of red zone target guy. So it just felt like the position and what he brought to the team right away got a little crowded. And if he's not 100% while still adjusting to learning and playing the position, I could see how he could slide down a depth chart a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that as well. The guy that I have, do you have another one, Maddie? Because I've got another one.
No, you go ahead. Rip it.
Okay. Guy that I'm looking at here, and we've talked a lot about him recently as we've been talking about the DB room, is Chamari Connor. Right now, Chamari Connor is listed as a starting safety next to Brian Cook with Jaden Hicks as the backup. to
Weird.
Brian Cook. That is weird. That's a little bit weird. That is not how they've been lining up. We have largely seen Brian Cook and Jaden Hicks back as the two starting safeties. So again, take this depth chart with a grain of salt. However, they have continually listed Chamari Connor as a safety in his time in Kansas City, and they have thrust him into the slot when there was injuries. That is when we have seen him be thrust into the slot the most. Now, last year we saw major injury to Jalen Watson, gone for most of the year. They got a different level of, kind of communication on the back end there. And when Jalen Watson came back, they did not have that same rotation that they had the previous year when we saw some injuries force Chamari Connor into the slot. I am looking at this right here as a starting safety, as listed by the Kansas City Chiefs. If this is your nickelback being listed as a starting safety, do we actually believe that if this team is fully healthy, that Chamari Connor is still going to be your nickelback, Maddie? I don't know. This just, I have a little bit of a struggle with here that he would be the first choice guy in that nickelback role if they're fully healthy, meaning if Christian Fulton is out there on the field as you're being listed as the starting safety opposite of Brian Cook.
Whew, there's a lot to unpack here. Okay. As it stands, Christian Fulton hasn't really practiced with this team. So let's say he gets healthy right now and they have to go play a game. Do I think Chamari Connor starts in the slot? Probably. I don't know what Fulton knows this playbook. We haven't seen him play in this system with any of these guys. So yeah, I think if you were to say right now, if Fulton was magically healthy, do they just automatically put Trent in the slot and put Fulton on the outside? Probably not. They probably would rather some time to work with. Now, if he was healthy for the entire camp, I would certainly hope we would trend towards a direction that Jalen Watson and or Christian Fulton are better at outside corner than Chamari Connor has been at slot corner so far from what we've seen in the NFL. I think that's a pretty accurate thing to say right now, even though Fulton has some ups and downs. I think what we've seen in the NFL points to that, which would mean no, Chamari Connor does not end up starting. This all said, Fulton's not there, right? I mean, Fulton hasn't been there yet, so we don't know what we're dealing with. So now I'm comparing Chamari Connor in the slot versus Najee Johnson outside, Joshua Williams outside, and now we're back to the same dilemma the Chiefs were faced with last year. And if there's one thing for sure, when I listen to Dave Merritt or Steve Spagnuolo talk about those three players, I can tell you which one of those three they're the highest on, and it's Chamari Connor. I don't know if I think he's been significantly better as a slot corner than they've been as an outside corner, but I can tell you who the coaching staff seems to like more. The guy, one, that they play as often as they can, but two, they speak much higher of him. So I think he's carved out a role, whatever that is going to be for this team. I do think he has carved out a role. I do think it's interesting that they still put him as a starting safety when they don't seem that interested overall in playing him at safety, even though they maybe should. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. I will say, even after we had that last talk where I mentioned it, I heard sounded like Hicks got some slot reps. He's been playing more and more in the slot, albeit with the second team, but he's been getting more and more slot reps. So that might be something that they have also in the back pocket if Chamari Connor, as the season gets along, struggles a little bit. So I don't know, but I do think Connor is going to play a significant role of some level in this defense. It's just a matter of, will it be as a rotational or starting safety, or will it be as kind of your starting nickelback until a Fulton is available and caught up to speed? It's such a weird situation they found themselves in with him.
It is. It really is. All right, Maddie, you got one more depth chart take for us before we get to the next topic?
Oh, sure. Let me scroll around through here and see if anything else pops to me. I hadn't really looked at this much because it's that time. Okay, I know this isn't a big takeaway for me necessarily. But I've seen some people talk about it. So, I mean, hey, Sky Moore's listed pretty high on the wide receiver depth chart, guys. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
No. I got one about that real quick here. We think it's interesting that Hollywood Brown is behind Rasheed and Xavier Worthy. I know he's on a 1-year deal. I get it.
I think it's pretty I think it's pretty well known that he's their third guy of that bunch. I also don't like how the Chiefs official depth chart just lists wide receiver. They don't do it as two outsides and a slot. Same thing with cornerback. Right. I don't like that they don't do that. Come on. Andy, of course. Nico Remigio's behind him. Jalen Royals is behind him. I don't buy any of that, right? So just, don't take too much attention to that. I think the running backs going Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, Brashard Smith. I don't want to say read too much into it, but I do know that some people are kind of upset that Brashard Smith is fourth. what did we exactly expect, right?
Yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco's clearly the guy they see as their RB1. Kareem Hunt has been their most reliable in terms of like, hey, we need to get a positive player. We need to get a yard. That's been Kareem Hunt. And you can use him on third downs because he can pass protect and catch the ball. So like, are we really splitting hairs over Elijah Mitchell and Brashard Smith being like which order they're ranked in? I don't know. I just wouldn't get bent out of shape on that one. Brashard Smith might finish fourth in the running back room at the end of preseason, and that wouldn't be like a problem. He was a 7th round pick and he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't think that one's I don't think that one you should be worried about. I think that one's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Especially as a converted wide receiver over at SMU and hasn't done a ton of pass blocking. Like everybody wants him on the field. Oh, think about how he's being used in the pass game. Okay, great. If it's a cover 0 blitz and Patrick's got to keep everybody in, he's a little worried about his running back being able to pick up a blitz. So, like, I get it. I do. I understand the desire to try and get some more juice on the field. Brashard Smith definitely has juice. I want to see him as well. I think we're going to see tons of him in preseason. My prediction is going to be that he's going to lead all running backs in preseason yardage. He's going to get the most opportunities. He's going to be out there. They're going to be working him and all those things. So I think we're going to see plenty of him, but I'm not bent out of shape with him being fourth on the depth chart. They're keeping all 4 of these guys in my
I think
opinion.
Carson Steele gets the most carries in the preseason. If I were to be a betting man,
you think so?
Because he can handle it. I don't know if I want Brashard Smith taking 20 preseason carries in game 3.
Okay, fair. So he's not going to get the most carries, but still the most yards. I stand by that statement.
I looked at that. Actually, I do got another depth chart thing.
Okay.
Wanya Morris is left tackle. Jalen Moore is a right tackle.
Yeah.
That's a thing, right?
Yeah, that's a thing. That's an interesting thing. Do you guys remember that Jalen Moore was brought in to be the left tackle and hasn't taken a single left tackle rep of all of camp?
And remember that Wanya Morris has looked really bad at left tackle, but like the one game he played right tackle, and not good, but he looked comfortable. He wasn't punching with his outside hand right down the numbers every play. So I just think it's been, I'm quickly going to touch on this. I don't think it's a real competition between Jalen Moore and Jawan Taylor. This isn't nothing to do with the depth chart. I think every time we see the guys are rotating, you've never seen Jawan Taylor take a second team rep, right? They're rotating, but Jawan Taylor's never taken a second team rep. When he's rotating, he's working back in and they're getting Jalen Moore. I don't think it's a real competition. It's just all I'm trying to say, unless Jawan Taylor, gets actually hurt. But I don't think it's a competition. Yeah. I just thought that was noticeable that Jalen Moore is listed as a right tackle and Wanya Morris has played almost 0 right tackle and is listed as a left tackle. We were also talking about running backs and like maybe on third downs. And this next segment can be quick. So I don't know when we're trying to get to break, but I'm going to squeeze it in here because I had a sweet transition that I'm running over myself with right now. I have PTSD from Kent trying to cut me off and go to break. So we're talking about Brashard Smith, right? And like how he can pass protect or how's that going to work cover 0. Guess what? If your offensive tackles don't need help, you can go 5 out. And Andy Reid would love to do that. So why don't we slip on over here and check in on Josh Simmons? It's been, like 5-6 days since we got to talk about him a little bit on the lab here. And buddy, since we last
we need to play the Josh Simmons theme song, the Josh Simmons Lab theme song? Hey, It's time to check in for Josh Simmons. Matt is going to talk about him for the rest of the time that we had before break.
Okay, I need that clipped. And anytime we talk Josh Simmons for his entire career, we have to play that. This is 100% a recurring bit. Thank you so much. All right. So now, since we last talked Josh Simmons and how he's going to the Hall of Fame, nothing's changed. But he has had a couple losses that have made it onto social media. And I just wanted to ask you, Craig, are you concerned? Are you now concerned that that Josh Simmons lost a rep to Chris Jones and that he lost a rep or 2 to Ashton Gelati without pads on?
I will say the Chris Jones rep that you are referencing, that you and you did this on purpose because you want to hash this out on the podcast. I contend that is not a pressure until after 3 seconds, and I'm okay. I'm okay with that. At 2.5, the pocket integrity is still fine on that. And then he loses. Yes, Chris Jones gets the better of him 3 seconds into the rep. I maintain that is good enough, and it's certainly better than they've dealt with recently. I think we all agree on that. But good enough against a really, truly elite pass rusher there. No, to answer your question, no, I don't have any issue with any of that because here's the thing. What were they working on? We don't know. We don't know what's happening there. We don't know what it is that they're trying to work on with Josh Simmons. Maybe they're trying to get him to practice a very specific technique, and they've got somebody working a very specific counter to that technique. Or maybe Gelati is trying to do something, that the coaching staff is telling him to do, and Josh Simmons is doing the polar opposite, and they're trying to get them out of their comfort zones. Josh Simmons has been dominant against Gelati. I mean, we have seen him tossing him around, throwing punches. Like, we have seen Josh Simmons bodying Gelati for a lot of these reps. What does it look like if things aren't going well for Josh Simmons? It feels like maybe that's what we're seeing a little bit. They're trying some things on for size. I'm not worried about it at all. Cut to Saturday when, we're all sitting around going, uh-oh, that wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be. But no, I'm completely good with what they are doing right now. I like that they're giving him more Chris Jones opposite him. I like that we are seeing more Charles and Minihue. They are really ramping up the difficulty and trying to give Josh Simmons a lot to deal with here. So I would not be surprised if some of these reps we were seeing something a little bit different. How do you feel?
Bodying Gelati might be my new fantasy football name. I think that
Bodying Gelati.
That's how I feel. Okay, no, what am I worried? No, I do think I said this. I wouldn't put it as a loss to Josh Simmons and the Chris Jones rep, but I do think Chris Jones won. I think he impacts the pocket on that play enough that, like, I think I would say the defender did a good job. The offensive tackle was like, okay. That said, the Gelati plays, I do think. I'm not worried about the Gelati plays because, like I said, it didn't have pads on. The spin move from Gelati was really nice, and that was the first time he caught Simmons' inside arm. Simmons used his inside arm and actually extended it, and Gelati caught it perfectly through the spin move, which was a great move for him. So, like, that's going to happen from time to time. And, like, that was the first time that we've seen, and maybe he's done it a ton, but it's not like he's been heavily relying on just that inside arm to control the rep and then lost because somebody finally countered it. It just seemed like it was the perfect combination of when he threw it, a good move by Gelati, it happens. And again, they weren't in pat. So I really could care less. I will say this, though, about Josh Simmons. I'm taking off the Hall of Fame, fun Homer hat for just a second. I think he's been a little reactive with his hands. I do think that he's going to, and we don't know if there's something they're coaching for him, right? I want to be very clear. When you watch one-on-ones, you have not seen him take a true quick set, like vertical set or even a 45-degree angled set, like, at all. It's almost all quick sets. He's jumping out and he's throwing hands. That's what Andy Heck likes to see in his one-on-ones from his offensive tackles. It's also why the towel behind them is always at 5 yards. And so when you see Mike Dana rip by at 7 yards and get run around the arc, it's not a pressure at all. It's a win for Josh Simmons based on what they're doing in the drill. That said, though, I do think Simmons has been a little reactive with his outside arm. He is kind of waiting for someone to either punch at him so he can knock it down, or he's coming in out wide to catch them and then just relying on his strength and ability to create torque and leverage to hold him up. Well, that's what had to happen in that Chris Jones rep is Chris Jones said, hey, buddy, I'm pretty strong and I'm kind of big. So if you're just going to let me get my hands in your chest, I'm probably going to win the rep. And then we saw the second, or like the other loss against Gelati that came out on the outside. Same thing. He was a little passive with that outside hand, and Gelati was able to club it down and actually win a lot tighter. So I don't think he has to become a strict outside hand puncher all the time, but he needs to put that in the bag so pass rushers can't start keying off that they can always get their hands on him first. I think, and maybe this could be something they're working on in terms of just go get in the right position, block with your hips, just try to frame everything and mirror everything. That could be 100% the drill, and come game time, it'll look different. I can't say I've noticed this in the few 11-on-11 clips that we've seen, but I will say it's just, he seems to be a little reactive, not saying passive, not saying weak, just reactive with that outside hand. And every now and then you got to mix it up and just show somebody that you will throw it to stunt them so they're not teeing off or like keying on it. So something to keep an eye on as we go through this last week of practice into the preseason game. Watch Josh Simmons' outside hand and just see how often he throws an actual like stout punch with it versus how often he's just trying to catch rushers with it. It'll be something just to see if he develops as we keep going through.
And for what it's worth, Andy Heck wants his guys to strike first, to be that contact initiator more often than not. It's why sometimes you see these younger guys when they come in and maybe need a little help with their balance. Lucas Niang, Wanye Morris, maybe a little bit of Kingsley Suamataia, definitely Kingsley Suamataia. they try and lean out and strike first, and you end up seeing that kind of balance over their ski, that over the skis look, because Andy Heck is trying to get them to lean into that a little bit more and just strike first. That's part of it. Now, not always. He wants to mix it up a little bit, because you don't want to be predictable with the pass rusher. Then all of a sudden they start teeing off on things. That's what happens with Wanye a lot. We are seeing the polar opposite from Josh Simmons right now. We are seeing a guy that is letting guys get to him and then reacting, like Maddie said, getting into that, swatting the hand down, trying to regain control, trying to wrench and leverage, making sure that his balance is good primarily, then reacting to it a little bit more. That is my preference. That's what I would prefer that he tries to do, because I've watched too many Chiefs tackles recently try and incorporate the primary and then not be able to keep their balance, be constantly off balance, and now it allows a quick pressure. Josh Simmons is making guys have to win slowly, or slower than they would typically win, because of the way he keeps everything in control. He keeps really good angles, his weight over the balls of his feet. He's not planted his heels in the ground, so he's not back too far. It really is exactly the rest of what Andy Heck is looking for out of an offensive tackle. Even when he gets his hands on a guy, he's so grippy, like he's got clamps. He really does lock guys up. It's just he's not initiating that contact 9 times out of 10. And that's something where you want to see a little bit more of it. You see all the time, really good offensive tackles throw defensive ends off all the time by, that fake punch, or, the little ghost punch and things like that. You don't get to see that at all out of Josh Simmons, because he can't set up the initial punch yet. Now, if there's one thing that can come along quicker than the other, it's that. The hands will go. I mean, like the striking part of this is going to happen. They're going to be able to work this out. We have seen Andy Heck take other tackles throughout his time that maybe are a little more seasoned. Orlando Brown Jr. comes to mind. Did absolutely nothing the way that Andy Heck wanted an offensive tackle to do. Like the absolute opposite of how he wanted him to play. And they worked on it in camp a little bit, and then he went, nah, you know what? Just do what feels comfortable. And Orlando Brown Jr., arguably, other than the one part of the season there that we got, Eric Fisher and Patrick Mahomes together, arguably has been the best tackle for Patrick Mahomes. So they're going to accommodate whatever it is that Josh Simmons needs here. But I'm with Matty. I want to see a little bit more of that aggressiveness. Be the aggressor a little bit more often when you're dropping back in your pass set, knowing that at the very worst, you can rely on what's already there, that's already in your bag. All right. We are going to take a break, and we are going to come back with some new trade candidates and head coach rankings right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to. And I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust. And I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible. And they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, nothing beats hanging out with the boys on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And the simplest way that you all can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part is Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and then use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Welcome back to the KC Laboratory, brought to you by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. Before we jump into this next topic, I need to tell you about the KCSN Golf Tournament. It is August 18th. Still have a couple spots left. Please go to givebutter.com/KCSN Golf to sign up. You've heard us talk about it a lot. Maddie and I have been at this thing before. It's a good time. It really is a good time. Get out there. Proceeds go to all the things that we like to do around here for the KCSN Foundation. It's very important to us to get to do some of the things within our community that we get to do this. So if you're a golfer, you listen to this, get out there, get a team together. That is givebutter.com/KCSN Golf on August 18th. All right, Maddie. Since we recorded our last KC Laboratory, there have been two players that have been very vocal about wanting a trade, and both of them actually kind of like make a little bit of sense for the Chiefs. So before we dive into head coach rankings here, let's get started on a couple of these guys. The first one I want to talk about, Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin. Right now, came out. He is a hold-in at Commanders camp right now. That means he is not practicing, but he is there in the building. Very dissatisfied with his contract right now. Was a very large reason why Jaden Daniels was able to hit the ground running. Not trying to take anything away from Jaden Daniels. He's an awesome quarterback, but when you're throwing the ball to Terry McLaurin, definitely helps. I mean, he threw 117 targets to McLaurin last year. Went over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. These are all career highs for a 30-year-old wide receiver here. Maddie, when you saw that Terry McLaurin was up for grabs here, what were you thinking about from a Chiefs perspective?
Yes, please. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, right? I know everyone's gonna be focused on the H, and then we're gonna be focused on the money. And like, yeah, sure, but also have some fun. Right? That's what we're gonna boil this down to. Have some fun. Oh, I want to get paid. I want to get paid like DK. I want to get paid like DK Metcalf. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. You know what? Do you want to win a Super Bowl? How about you take a little bit more than Cortland Sutton and win a Super Bowl, buddy? You're not okay with that? Okay, fine. We move on. But that's a pretty good sales pitch if you ask me. All we do is play in AFC championship games, win most of them, go to Super Bowls, win a good chunk of them too. Do you want to come here for Cortland Sutton money, which isn't chump change? Yes or no, Mr. Terry? And you kind of see what happens, because Terry McLaurin, one, not only is really, really good, but this isn't an 8-year contract, right? We're looking at a 3-year contract at most.
Yeah.
And maybe by the end of it, he's starting to fall off. But you look at Terry McLaurin's game right now, nothing about what he looked like last year says he's at the cliff. And they can happen fast or pretty quick for wide receivers, but it's not as if Terry McLaurin wins like Tyreek Hill by just literally outrunning everybody. This is a pure outside wide receiver who wins off the line of scrimmage, wins to all 3 levels, and beats man coverage. So he does everything. So it's just it's a perfect fit from what the Chiefs are missing in the wide receiver room. It brings them a guy that could be wide receiver 1 that you would play on outside, that could be a more reliable deep threat than what we have seen from MVS and what we've seen from Tyquan Thornton in the NFL, from what we saw from Xavier Worthy last year. But that's not what he's limited to. You obviously have the hurdle of a trade. You obviously have the hurdle of a contract, but that's not my job to figure out. So if I'm just sitting here making a case, it makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, Yeah, my initial take is if the contract's not obscene, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, reportedly, he's looking for DK money. That's
It's a
pricey.
little pricey.
That's really pricey all of a sudden here. But yeah, I mean, the Cortland Sutton contract basically gave you the floor of what it is. He should
Yeah.
get paid more than Cortland Sutton. He should, but vastly more. How about that? You know, I feel like it's okay to have that conversation right now. He should have been paid by the Commanders already. I want to be clear here. There's absolutely no reason for the Commanders not to have made this deal already. You have a hotshot young quarterback that is going to lead you and make you competitive in every single game. Do not take his best receiving weapon away just because you got Deebo Samuel, who is not the same style of player whatsoever. Like, I don't get that at all. So I would be willing to part with a third-round draft pick. I asked the chat this earlier today, our chat, specifically for this very reason. You know, how valuable are third-round draft picks? Well, if you're looking at the Chiefs, they haven't been super valuable since Travis Kelce in 2013. You look back at the history of who they've drafted recently, they have drafted 2 developmental offensive tackles, Lucas Niang and Wanye Morris. Not really working out there, not playing a ton of snaps. Drafted a couple of linebackers now, you know, Dorian O'Daniel. This is in the Veach area. O'Daniel and Leo Chanel. Leo Chanel is a fantastic player that I'm glad that the Chiefs have, but he's the same linebacker. You know, there's only so much usage that you can get out of that. And then 2 defensive tackles in Colin Saunders, who was always a rotational player in Kansas City, and Derek Nottie, who was on kind of 1-year piecemeal deals. I think you hope that you're getting more out of guys like Ashton Gelati, getting more out of guys like Noel Williams. But by and large, the Chiefs have batted well above average in every other round of the draft right now. The third round seems to be a little bit of a trouble for them. And it's right before the turn. It's right at the end of day 2. You just see a lot of guys fly off the board. I've been pleased with all these picks that the Chiefs have made, to be clear. In the moment, I've really liked the value that they've gotten, but that value hasn't materialized for one reason or another. I would give up a third rounder for Terry McLaurin right now to add to the room and just say, hey, guess what? Doesn't really matter how long Rashee Rice is out. Doesn't really matter if Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy may be a little bit light or injury prone or whatever the case may be. You've got another guy that you can funnel volume targets through. So if that contract was a little closer to Cortland Sutton, I'm pulling the trigger on that one. What would you trade, Maddie? Player, pick? What are you looking?
I'm all in for this third round pick trade for Terry McLaurin. Obviously, you sign him for a deal, a contract that's coming in a little bit higher than Cortland Sutton, but not up to DK Metcalf money. And then you ride off into the sunset and you feel fantastic about it. If it helps sweeten the deal, guess what, Commanders, you can take Hollywood Brown back for him. Ooh. And like, they're not the same players, but they actually kind of win. Like, they play the way Hollywood Brown played in Baltimore and Arizona is a little bit similar to how McLaurin was used. Hollywood Brown going to Cliff Kingsbury, I think he could try to find ways to use him. So you want to get somebody that can maybe step in and eat some of those targets. If you're Washington, you can have a third in Hollywood Brown. If I can have Terry McLaurin, and then we will pay him more than Cortland Sutton. That would be my plan if I were in charge of the Chiefs. And, you know, I would like to have fun. Now, would the Commanders do that? I don't know. They only have 1 year left to Terry McLaurin, though. So, like, I mean, are they going all in to win this year? Or would they rather have the draft? Or would they rather have the draft pick? So I don't know. So I would try. I mean, I would be interested in getting them sooner, the better. Like, part of the issue with DeAndre Hopkins last year was I think he's washed. I just don't think he can move. And I think that's bothering him. But also getting a guy mid-season to have to learn the playbook on the fly is going to be difficult, even for a veteran. So the earlier you could make this move happen, the better. Give them all of the rest of the preseason to try to figure it out. So if you were even semi-interested as the Chiefs, you should take your swings here. I think the problem is the Chiefs run into, they probably feel pretty good about Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and both are kind of young. So, like, is this the right time to make a move like this? I don't know. But we don't know how long Rashee Rice is going to miss. So I'm still taking the swing. I'm okay with 3 good wide receivers. I know.
Well, but I think the important detail of that is that Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, all these guys are on 1-year deals. So that room is going to be a little more bare next year. You're probably going to have to evaluate wide receiver next year. You're going to play in that market a little bit or re-sign one of these guys on a 1-year deal. I don't know. Maybe is a more set it and forget it thing. The other guy that I want to talk about here is stud defensive player. Call him linebacker, call him defensive end, call him whatever you want. He's just a phenomenal defensive player, is Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons should have been paid by the Cowboys a long time ago, but Jerry Jones is doing his Jerry Jones thing. And not only is he making life difficult on this contract negotiation for Micah Parsons, he is also dragging this into the public very regularly. Micah Parsons and his agents are responding the same way. This is turning into a very ugly feud that now also has guys like CeeDee Lamb within that locker room sticking up for Micah publicly. CeeDee Lamb also went through this with Jerry Jones last year, did not enjoy that experience. They eventually did get the job done, but CeeDee's out here tweeting about how, no, this is how it is. This is how this guy does things. This is what it is. Micah Parsons has demanded a trade. This is not a small deal. This is arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. And he is, 25, 26, a very young player. This is a guy that's going to be playing at a crazy high level for at least another 5 years. Maddie, should take on Micah Parsons specifically for the Chiefs here. I know it's a slam, but I mean, every 31 other teams are lining up to try and see if they can get the Cowboys to agree to something here. But specifically for the Chiefs, what you looking at here?
I mean, you have to start with something that resembles the Khalil Mack from the Raiders to the Bears trade. And when you get to that point, I don't know if it's worth it for the Chiefs where they're currently at, because they are going to be contenders without doing that. And you want to keep reloading with young pieces. Yeah. So it's the Chiefs are in a tricky spot because they're not trying to make a step. They don't need a new identity to be made on defense. I understand that Chris Jones is getting older and you would love to have a Micah Parsons, but the way things are going, I don't know, just see if he hits free agency and then go win the bidding war, I guess. I mean, I don't know what the Cowboys are doing over there. If the Cowboys didn't have so much success in the 90s, everybody would laugh at how hilariously they are run. That team is a disaster from top
They're a dumpster fire, man.
Bottom. They are so bad, but they were very successful for a period of time. So don't talk about it, I guess. Yeah, I would love to have Micah Parsons. It's just his is one where I think the price tag is going to be so astronomically high that it feels like middle-class teams make a lot more sense to see if he can elevate them rather than a team that's already at the top trying to go above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If the Commanders weren't already trying to compete for the Terry McLaurin piece of that, but that's the level of team that I'm thinking of. A team that's in the playoffs, just barely in the playoffs, but this is the piece to try and push us up to be a Super Bowl contender. That makes sense. Chiefs are going to be a Super Bowl contender. And frankly, like Maddie said, I don't think they want to give up multiple first-round picks if they can get away with it. So you start looking at other players on the roster. I see people saying things like, George Karlaftis. Well, at this point right now, with the way that contract is structured, you're probably not getting rid of George Karlaftis. That's a huge dead money hit. You just paid the man. I get that Micah Parsons is a significantly better player. It's not to try and put down George Karlaftis. It's just Micah. That would be a player that people are suggesting here. I'm looking at other blue chips. And frankly, if you're getting rid of a blue chip on defense, you probably want a blue chip on defense coming back to you. That leaves really just two guys at this point. So one of them is Chris Jones. Yeah, Maddie just mentioned him. He's in his 30s now. He's got 3 more years left on his deal. He would play really well in Dallas. I'm not going to lie. He would fit on that defensive line pretty well. That is a $27 million dead cap hit that they would incur next year for Chris Jones. Yeah, you would get a lot better on your defensive line. I would feel very great about the defensive end room there, but your defensive tackles are rough. Maybe you sign Christian Wilkins for nothing because he's already getting paid a lot, but you are incurring a huge dead cap cost next year, and the Chiefs are already going to have to figure out something to do with their cap. They'll get creative with it. I'm not worried about it, but that limits some of what you can do when you need to be reloading, and it's not going to be a one-for-one swap. As much as we love Chris Jones, Chris Jones to Micah Parsons probably is still going to cost a high pick, maybe even a first-round pick still. I mean, it is going to be a lot to get him out of there. The other guy is Trent McDuffie. And the only reason that I'm entertaining this, because you've heard me go on and on about the DB room. I don't want the Chiefs to get any weaker at the DB room. If the Chiefs are confident that they are not going to be able to pay Trent McDuffie, if this is a situation where they've already looked at it and they've said, hey, after this year, we're just going to be using the tag. Like we're going to tag him a couple of times. We're going to see this player basically ride off into the sunset. We're going to use up his best years and then basically let him go get that big second contract somewhere else, but it'll be on the downside of that. That is the only way that I would entertain a Trent McDuffie trade. You're still probably going to have to give up a high pick, maybe not a first rounder at this point, maybe multiple seconds, maybe, something along those lines to try and bridge the gap, but only because Trent McDuffie is so young that they could slot him into that room and feel pretty good about it. But he's probably your best bargaining chip, and your DB room is dire without Trent McDuffie. So I really, as much as I would like to add Micah Parsons to this defensive end room, to this defensive line, I don't like the options that are out there for the Chiefs to do that, Maddie.
Yeah. I'm undergoing technical difficulties. My camera's about to turn off, I believe, but I think I can still talk. I'm surprised. Yeah. I'm surprised that you being as concerned about the cornerback room would be willing to do this, right? I'm a little surprised that you were okay to get rid of a Trent McDuffie for a Micah Parsons. We're back. We're good to go.
Oh, we're not going to pay him. Only if they're not going to pay him.
Yeah. Well, I would make the trade even if
you messing with your camera, so I'm taking advantage of that.
No. I was gonna say I would make the trade even if they were going to pay Trent McDuffie, because Micah Parsons is a better football player than Trent McDuffie, and I love Trent McDuffie. I've made a case for him for 2 years for being in the upper echelon, right below Patrick Surtain in the cornerback hierarchy. Thing is, Micah Parsons is still better than that. And so, hey, by the way, they're only separated by a year and a half in age. So it's not like Micah Parsons is any older at a position that oftentimes plays a little longer. At this point in time, Steve Spagnuolo's defense is kind of run through having an A+ defensive lineman, pass rusher. Chris Jones is getting closer to the end of his journey rather than the beginning. So if there was a way to finagle a deal that was just straight up McDuffie for Micah Parsons and you could work out the financials, or even if I have to add in a mid-round pick and you can work out the financials, I don't know. You'd be hard pressed to talk me off of that if that was an option, because I love Trent McDuffie. I think he's phenomenal. For the next 2 years, while I'm trying to build out my my cornerback room to get it to be acceptable, quarterbacks still only have about 2 seconds to get that football out.
Hey, Josh Williams, line up across that guy and grab a hold of him off the line. You get 5 yards, buddy. That's all I need from you. 5 yards.
You got 2 seconds to get that ball out, because you are not one-on-one in Chris Jones, Micah Parsons, because you can't leave a tight end on George Karlaftis. We know what it looks like when there's just a tight end on him.
Yeah.
So it's just, you got 2 years of an elite defensive line, right? And we've seen what that does. Obviously, you have to have some players behind him. I don't know. I think that you would, at that point, consider it. That said, somebody's going to offer, I think, a better deal than that. If you're the Cowboys, somebody is going to offer better. Trent McDuffie's great, but somebody's going to offer better than Trent McDuffie in a 4th-round pick for Micah Parsons at some point in time. And the Chiefs will have a hard time, I think, trying to fit him financially until they're out of the Chris Jones contract. It's real tough to make those two overlap. And I get it. You can make the money, you can move the money where Micah Parsons is all in the latter years, but that's still going to be real tough while the Chris Jones stuff is still right there in the books.
this is why the only reason why I was really considering Chris Jones. I mean, just a like for like cost, not necessarily not player at all, but like for like cost there that you would feel comfortable if you basically went to Mike and was like, hey, buddy, next year your cap is going to be insanely low because we had to undertake a $27 million cap hit for Chris Jones. Help us out here, dude. We're going to make sure that you're taken care of. Yeah, maybe you work that out, but it's just, I don't know. That also requires Jerry Jones to want to trade with the Chiefs. And right now, nobody really wants to trade with the Chiefs, and let alone giving them one of the best defensive players in the NFL. This is also Jerry Jones. He's going to come out and he's going to say all this stuff. And they might be boys. But he's going to come out and he's going to say all this stuff, and then he's going to turn around and he's going to pay Micah Parsons $42 million, and then he's going to act like he's the good guy. That's what's going to happen, because he'd be silly not to. All right. Anything more on trades, Maddie? Are you ready to get into head coach?
Oh my God. I'm so excited for these head coach rankings, honestly. I've been more excited.
Me too, buddy. All right. Let's get into the head coach rankings. Super producer Tucker, let us know. We have the exact same number of tiers. This surprised me because I know how many tiers I have, and Maddie knows how many tiers he has. Yeah, Maddie, I'm going to let you kick us off, buddy. You go ahead.
I have 6 tiers of head coaches. I'm going to say this. This was the hardest one I've done. This was harder than any position. I said this already. I had like 5 guys on the outside of my top 10 that I think I could actively make a case to go somewhere in between 7 and 10, honestly. So this was a very difficult list for me to make. I found myself kind of going back and forth a little bit, but I think we settled on the proper 6 tiers. So tier number 6, the lowest tier, number 10. Oh, this is the eating nails and ripping dongs tier. And ripping dongs. Mike Vrabel is number 10. Number 9 is Demeco Ryans. I think these two guys are going to eat nails and rip dongs if they win. But they're gonna provide a floor, right? There's going to be a certain level of physicality and competence that these two guys, as long as you're not having a GM come in and try to control Mike Vrabel's roster and trade away his best offensive player, they're going to come in and they are going to provide you a safe floor of being playoff competitors, regardless of who's out there. And they are going to have an identity on at least defense, but if not offense and defense, because they just bring a certain level of energy and demeanor to the team. There are going to be sexier coaches in terms of what they run below them that I leave off the list, but I think these two guys just provide a certain just philosophy that I can buy into to give me a safety net as a head coach. And if they make the right offensive coordinator hire, I think you can see them really push for a Super Bowl based on how well they organize and run their teams.
No, I like that. I like those two. Not on my list. Surprising. Neither one of them on my list.
Fair.
But again, we're at the bottom of the list here. But guys, I definitely considered. I respect both of those coaches a lot. I thought last year with Vrabel, it made no sense at all. And then when, New England came calling, it made all the sense in the world. Like it really did. But I think Vrabel's just a hell of a coach that consistently maximizes his talent, which leads me to my tier number 6 here, which is called I couldn't make a best coaches list without Mike Tomlin on it. So here he is tier. And number 10, Mike Tomlin. Every time that I think about this exercise, when we get into off seasons, people talk about it a lot. When this topic comes up, best coaches in the NFL, I think of Mike Tomlin ahead of a lot of guys that are going to be above him on this list. He is consistently a talent maximizer. Now, he's also responsible for some of the talent deficiencies on that roster, which is why he's at number 10. Like he's fully, responsible for a lot of these decisions. But it is very, very rare that you see a player leave the Pittsburgh Steelers and get better. Now, he's not like a consistent, guy that brings, everybody up. We've seen guys go to the Steelers and be worse. We've seen guys that don't get along. But he is able to take the talent that he has and get the most out of him. Every year, I play this fun exercise where I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers roster and I say, how the hell is he going to keep this streak of not having a losing season going? And year after year, it just happens. He wills his way to it. Mason Rudolph got to the playoffs with Mike Tomlin. That is egregious. Like there is no world that Mason Rudolph should ever be pushing an NFL team to the playoffs, and yet that's what we see year after year. We also see him do a better job at managing people that are problems, players that are problems for other teams than any other coach in the NFL. How many times have we watched supremely talented players leave the Steelers and just get the peek into what Mike Tomlin was keeping under wraps? It's crazy. It's insane what he is able to do within that building. So every time I think about it, I think about the completeness of Mike Tomlin teams. And they're Mike Tomlin teams. There's a very distinct identity, and it is all Mike Tomlin. This is going to be the best talent that he's had in a little while for a team. I'm curious to see how it looks. I don't really like the quarterback by any means, but we'll see. It's certainly better than Mason Rudolph right now, but we'll see here. I just think of him as just kind of the epitome of a really, truly consistently top 10 coach in the NFL, because he's just able to maximize every year in a very tough division.
He was just off my list because I feel like over the past 3 years, he's getting so far stuck in his ways that he's still maximizing what he has, but he's also holding them back now. I think before he wasn't the reason they were being held back. I think he's kind of holding them back now. Massive respect. He was on my list initially, but he had to get bumped out for that reason. So he was just on the outside. All right, next, I have a one-person tier coming in next. This is, I don't know what you do. Seriously, what do you do here, and why does it work? And it is Nick Sirianni coming in at number 8. And I don't really need to spend a lot of time here because I don't know what he does. No one knows what he does. He yells at fans. He cries. He cusses. And he's there, and they just won a Super Bowl, and they've been to 2, and they've been competitive, and they've lost coordinators, and they've turned over the staff and the team, and I still don't think he does anything, but yet they win, and he's still there. So shout out Nick Sirianni. You're in the top 10 NFL head coaches, and I am not sure what your resume would even look like at this point in time.
All right, we're going to throw up my next tier, which is called the wins a lot, but what would you say you do here? Coming in at number 9, Nick Sirianni, for all the reasons that Maddie just mentioned there. And number 8 is Sean McDermott. Now, both of these guys I look at here, and I don't see the particular parts of their game that they were really good at coaching coming through as being strong suits for the team. They are not the defining factor. I just got done talking about how Mike Tomlin, it's a Mike Tomlin team. Like, you could put them in any uniform and watch them play and go, yeah, it's a Mike Tomlin team. I know what that looks like. I'm not sure who you could put in here, but any coach, I'm really unsure. They're good coaches. They get their guys to play hard. They do have buy-in. They have commitment. But I can point to things.
I know what McDermott does well. He's good at speeches.
He's good at speeches. And Nick Sirianni, I think, might be too. But, like, when I look at it, I never think about the Bills or the Eagles being a team that their coach is getting the most out of them. They go for it on 4th downs. They make courageous decisions. You see things like that you think about from coaching decisions that are good. That is definitely something that both these guys do. But at the same time, Nick Sirianni has a Hall of Fame level offensive line, a Hall of Fame level defensive line over the past couple of years, a quarterback perfectly suited for the run game that they're out here running that he's not orchestrating, by the way. And one of the best running backs in modern history here, playing really well behind this offensive line, 2 stud wide receivers. None of that, like, you could put, I don't know, you could put D'Amico Ryans on this team and he'd probably win a Super Bowl just the same as Nick Sirianni. But he does get these guys to play. They are committed to it. They get free agents. Like, that's the other part of that.
It sounds like they hate it half the time. Sirianni, it sounds like they hate it half the time, but then, like, they play hard for him. So, like,
I don't know.
Like,
it's one of those, but they do. They're committed. Sean McDermott has a unicorn at quarterback and makes stuff happen. But at the same time, he comes to the table with different game plans. Like, oh, we're going to have to score 50 this week. Okay, we'll go out there, Josh. We're going to open up the game plan. Here's the way that we're going to orchestrate this. Then they get to the Chiefs, and it's, hey, we're going to pound the rock. We're going to try and take the air out of the ball because we don't want Patrick to have it. He does a good job with some of the day-to-day stuff, but then when I look at the complete team, I don't look at that and go, oh, that's a Sean McDermott team because it has an identity that Sean instilled. No, I look at that and I go, who is the offensive coordinator that's having Josh do this? And Josh is awesome. Or, who's the defensive coordinator that was able to get some of these blitzes put together, that was able to do this. I don't think of Sean McDermott as the guy that's calling any of that or the guy that's doing of any of that. So they win a lot and their teams love them, but I just don't know what they do. Either one of them, what they do for their teams.
Yeah, McDermott was off my list too, because they haven't won yet, and he's been in charge of a few like technical mistakes that have cost them. I think at times, like some of the going for it too early is obviously the 13-second game and how they handled that. It's like he feels like he's cracked a little bit under pressure with the game management stuff he's had to do sometimes. Sirianni hasn't done that, but yeah, similar boat for both of them. I get it. So next, we're going to my, I believe what is this, like fourth tier? These are the tough dudes who gamble. These are the nail eaters, but they like to gamble. Dan Campbell, John Harbaugh. They both have very physical football teams. We love how, they're both little oddballs, but we love Dan Campbell. John Harbaugh hides his oddball better than his brother, Jim. But I've heard he's just as odd. He just hides it better. You talk about Tomlin, like, when you're watching those kind of teams. I think Dan Campbell and John Harbaugh have a specific type of team, but these two guys, I think, have fully embraced new age football. They are very willing to gamble on fourth downs. They are going to take big risks, even when they're not working, because they understand, or they've hired somebody that understands, like, hey, this is where you technically have the best odds to win. And so while I want to sit here and preach old school football, be tough, be physical, be dominant, I know that just doesn't work all the time. I'm going to go ahead and lean on what other people's strengths are too. So Dan Campbell and Harbaugh get there. I know some people are super high on Dan Campbell. And I don't think he's football dumb. We all make fun of him for the way he came out and said biting kneecaps. I don't think he's football dumb. I think he's a very smart football mind as well. But I do want to see what he does without Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn around before I start to really push him up this list, because I do know he had a role in that offense. He's an offensive guy, but I don't know how much true control he had. So he's still there. Harbaugh, I think, has a resume that speaks for himself, but similar to McDermott, he makes a few decisions every now and then I do think cost his team game management wise. But again, all in all, sets the tone, gambles when he needs to gamble in the right spots. So that gets them up here.
No, I get that. And I'll talk about both of those guys here in just a little bit as well on my list. My next tier is the number 7, the rest of the West. That's right.
Oh.
I Matty answered this. I have 3 coaches at number 7, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, and Pete Carroll. I hate that the AFC West wised up and decided, oh, you know what's really tough to do? Outcoach Andy Reid. So let's go get some really good coaches to try and be opposite him right now. You want to talk about identity. Every single one of these coaches brings their identity. Pete Carroll already put his stamp on the team by coming out there and saying, oh, Christian Wilkins, not very well liked in the locker room. All right, well, I'm about to make a statement and show to these veterans what I'm about to do. If you haven't ever read any of the articles or any of the things that Pete Carroll did at USC, go find those. There are some fantastic stories about him, fantastic coverage about it, phenomenally fascinating individual. All 3 of these guys in a different division are going to drag their team at or near the top of the division. They're going to maximize their talent. They're going to do their thing. You know what you're watching. I'm watching when I watch Bo Nix play football, I am watching the same offense that Drew Brees did in the New Orleans Saints. That's what I'm watching. When I watch the Chargers play football, I am watching Jim Harbaugh. I'm just watching Jim Harbaugh. It feels like I'm watching, 23 guys out there that are just Jim. But I it just comes through so strongly, and there's so much excitement and enthusiasm, and guys want to die to play for these guys. Yeah, Jim is a cornball, like a complete and utter cornball. Sean Payton, bounties out on people, like actively cheating on stuff. Pete Carroll is just a weird psychopath about football, about everything. And yet all three of these guys, when you're in the room with them, these players, when you're in the room with them, you want to die for them. Like, you want to play at your best for them. And so you see guys that have been in the league for a long time that have had a particular way of playing. And this is how I want to play football, and this is the exact way that I want to be. Nah. They come in, Jim comes in, Sean comes in, Pete comes in, and they change everything. And they commit wholeheartedly into that. You don't engender that kind of buy-in from anybody else in the NFL. Maybe some of the guys above here, but like, it just is impressive to me that all three of these guys can perform and coach at the level that they are. Some of the results are not always there, but you know that it's a well-coached team behind the scenes.
They were two more guys that were just outside of my top 10. Jim and Pete. Pete having the time off after not having the best success at the end of the Seahawks thing, that pushed him lower. Like, for me, he's got to fight his way back in. Jim's right there. He lost out because I don't know if he knows what wins on modern. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh knows what modern offense is. We're going to find out.
He knows what the Jim Harbaugh offense is.
Right. John Harbaugh eventually embraced it. I don't know if Jim has yet. He didn't need to at Michigan, right? And like last year, they kind of did once the run game wasn't working for the Chargers, but then he still kept Greg Roman. So like, I just don't know if he knows what modern offense is yet, but he's still right there. So like, I get both those guys. I like them both there. My next one, I think this is my third tier. We got the offensive geniuses who are undone by their ego. Number 5, Sean Payton. Number 4, Kyle Shanahan. Both these guys think they're the smartest guy in the room at all times. And I don't think it really matters. I'm not saying that they won't learn from others, but at the end of the day, both of them think they are the smartest guy in the room at all times. They are going to know everything. You listen to Kyle Shanahan talk about what he wants. He's got something very specific he wants from his defensive coordinators. He wants his defensive coordinators to coach a certain way, to run a certain scheme. And if they don't kind of do what he thinks was the right call, sometimes he might fire them. So like, there's that ego spreads really, really far with him. Like, you can see he wants control over everything. Sean Payton's the same way. I don't think he quite reaches out as far defensively as Kyle Shanahan does, but you still see it. Like, he wants to control every little thing about it, and he's not exactly willing to budge on it until he's decided he's ready to budge on it, if that makes sense. He's never going to lose the argument for it, but they're both great offensive minds. I mean, Sean Payton made Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos get to the playoffs. Like, they were a formidable offense somehow. And like, they seem to be trending in the right direction. And this isn't just the same old Drew Brees Saints offense. Like, there's some new wrinkles to that thing. So I credit to Sean Payton. I think he's gone far and above. Like, he has reinvented a little bit of what he does while staying within the general structure to advance on it. Kyle Shanahan's offenses are obviously always at the top of the league. It's just eventually, I think their own egos get in their way, and it stops them from having the utmost success that their offensive minds could bring.
Yep. I'm with you. I'm with you on all of that. Like, I really am. And just to continue that conversation, we'll throw this one up here. My tier, really, really great coaches. Number 6, Kevin O'Connell. Number 5, Kyle Shanahan. And number 4, John Harbaugh. 2 of these guys have already been talked about here. Completely agree on John Harbaugh. Like, what he has done year after year with the Ravens. Sometimes he holds on to guys a little bit longer than he should. I mean, from a coordinator perspective, but he's also a coordinator factory in a way, especially on defense there. He's able to exhibit all of that. And the way that he approaches the game, there's gambling there. There's ways to do it there. The success hasn't been there in the Super Bowl. Like, we haven't seen it get to that point consistently for John, but every year I can pretty much write in Sharpie that the Baltimore Ravens are going to be a 12-win team, a 13-win team. And a lot of that I attribute not to the players on it. I do. Lamar is phenomenal, a fantastic player. They've really done a good job of building that defense as well. But it comes down to John. Like, I would feel very, very confident in a lot of different setups for this team, a lot of different ways that they were trying to run their defense, run their offense, whatever it may be with John at the helm. I just have that much implicit trust in him. Kyle runs his stuff. Like, Kyle is only running his stuff, but his stuff
and nothing else
is the thing, nothing else. But it is the thing. He took his dad's offense and he went, oh, this really works. What if I add all of these crazy elements to the equation here, and I basically help birth the next generation of offensive minds here? Kyle Shanahan is one of these individuals that I look back on, and I'm going to think about him when we get towards the end of his career, what it might have looked like if Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes weren't in Kansas City together. Like, Kyle Shanahan probably wins 2 Super Bowls. Not probably, almost definitely wins 2 Super Bowls. You probably have a Sean McDermott Super Bowl in there. Hell, maybe Nick Sirianni's got 2 at this point. These are the kinds of life-changing things that occur. Kyle gets there consistently, as we saw, even in his time in Atlanta. He gets there consistently. He just can't get it over the line because of what Matty said. He's the smartest guy in the room. His ego gets in the way. But you don't get to that position as routinely as you do if you're not a consistently great coach. And at least
there's a reason their egos are that high. There's a reason their egos are that big, right? Like, I'll be very clear. They're incredible at what they do, and the success backs it up. Like, they have proven success. Like, it's not unwarranted. It's just at the highest levels, this is what holds them back. I mean, it's literally what undoes them, is like, they are so good at what they do that it gets them there, but it also is what ultimately costs them at the end.
For sure. Absolutely the case. And it just, it's one of those that when I look back on Kyle, I'm going to think of it a lot differently because I'm looking at it from the lens of the team that got to win a lot. And it's just one of those that I wonder what could have been with him. And at least when his teams stink, they really stink. Like, he's got it figured out. They're not just kind of good most years. They're either really good or they're really bad. And the really bad nets them a nice high draft pick. They're able to, add some premium blue chip talent and continue to build. So they got it figured out over there. The one guy that we hadn't talked about yet, Kevin O'Connell. I am just so thoroughly impressed by everything that he has done in a very short amount of time in Minnesota. I was so thoroughly impressed with what he did in Los Angeles before he came over there with the Rams as part of that Super Bowl winning team. Anybody that can line up Kirk Cousins, that can line up, that can line up Sam Darnold and take a team to 14 wins is outrageous to me. That I feel like this organization is in the best possible hands that they could be in right now with a young quarterback. He is a quarterback whisperer. He has figured this out. He's figured out the most important position. He puts his own new wrinkles on the McVay, Shanahan, Mike McDaniel pieces of all of this. He has his own layers and his own elements, and he architects it perfectly around the quarterback at the helm. And so that is the key. That is the biggest part of it. He doesn't try and meddle in the defensive side of the ball. He turned around and went, "Hey, Brian Flores, you shouldn't be on the street right now. Come do whatever the hell you want. And we're just going to go score more points. If you get blown up by a bunch of cover zero beaters, don't worry about it. We'll put 50 on the board." Just the implicit trust and buy-in that he gets from everything. He's still very young in his career right now, but he's going to be up here for a long time. I don't see that there's any way that he falls down the mark. He just does everything so well.
Well, that takes me to my number 2 tier, which is the offensive geniuses who control their ego. And it is number 3 is Kevin O'Connell, and number 2 is Andy Reid. For pretty much exactly what you said about Kevin O'Connell, right? Like, here's a very smart offensive guy who has no issues pulling from other people's playbooks. Yeah, he's had Justin Jefferson, but look at how creatively he goes about finding ways to get him advantageous looks and to actually take advantage of him despite who his quarterback is, despite how bad his offensive line is. Here, let me use these run game. Let me use that run game. Like, it's constantly evolving, shifting, and maximizing, one, what the offense is, but 2, prioritizing how to best utilize his best players. Like, he maximizes Justin Jefferson as great as he is. He gets the absolute best out of him because of the spots he puts him in. So, and then, yeah, you said it with, like, he's like, "Hey, Flores, you want to come do everything here? Cool. I'm going to stay out of it. I don't care if your super high pressure defense isn't exactly a perfect fit for my style of offense. We'll make it work because you're really good at that, and I won't meddle." Hey, guess what? Andy Reid does the same thing. Andy Reid has this offense that is awesome, that he wants to control every single little piece of. If he could play quarterback out there for his teams, he probably would choose to, honestly. But he can't. So he has Patrick Mahomes, which helps. But then, Andy Reid has this offensive system that's phenomenal. He gets great buy-in from his players. He knows how to talk to them, coach them, get everybody up and at him. Like, yeah, he's not like, he doesn't come across as tough as some of the other guys we've had in different tiers, but Andy Reid teams aren't soft. Like they really never have been soft. They are pretty, like, they know they practice hard. They work hard. He gets everybody up. So we know all that. And then like same thing we talked about with O'Connell. He did it with Bob Sutton. Now he's doing it with Steve Spagnuolo. Like, hey, this is your defense, right? Like I can have input, but this is your defense. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to disagree with your calls, and be upset about it. You were running the defense. I'm running the offense. I've learned from my mistakes in the past when I tried to run everything. It didn't work. My ego at one point in time did get the best of me. It did get me fired from a job.
Yeah.
My ego did. So let me look in the mirror and figure out where to go from here. So I just think that Andy Reid at this point in his career, I think his offense right now isn't the best for the era of like football that we're in. His West Coast offense isn't the best suited for this era, and I don't think he has adapted quite as quickly as he could have. And so we will see this year if that starts to change and it's been personnel driven or just his stubbornness of where he is. But by and large, he doesn't let his ego get in the way of what he does, and we know how offensively genius he is. So he comes in at number 2 with Kevin O'Connell.
Whew. Number two. The torches and pitchforks are out for Maddie.
Just pull him up at number 2 on your list as well.
No. The next generation's influence is my next tier here, and that is number 3, Sean McVay, and number 2, Dan Campbell. The way that we view coaches, they kind of come in waves. You think of like old guard, you think of new guard, you think of guys that, had success for a time, they fade into the background. You see them kind of maybe pop up. Sean Payton's a prime example of that. You see new young coaches that you think, oh, wow, this is going to be the next best thing. Mike McDaniel is one of those guys. And then all of a sudden, after a couple of years, you start to think, oh, well, maybe not on the head coaching thing. You rarely see coaches that come in that change the way the next generation is going to coach. There have been a few of those. Mike Shanahan was definitely one of those. Buddy Ryan was one of those, more from the defensive side. Not Bill Belichick, because Belichick did things his own way, and there was no way to really mimic it. I feel that Dan Campbell and Sean McVay here in another 10, 15 years are going to have a litany of coaches that are trying to coach the way that they are. It feels like this is the pivot. These guys that just unabashedly love football to death, like would almost die without it. Sean McVay was so into football that he won a Super Bowl. And then as he was coming down off of the high of the Super Bowl, he did not know where he needed to go next with his life. Where he contemplated retiring because he was like, I just don't know what to do with myself anymore. They come off so passionate about it, and it can be cheesy. Everybody remembers Dan Campbell's first presser. They remember the biting the kneecaps and all of that, and people made fun of him. But you will not find a set of 2 coaches that get exactly what they want out of their players more so than these 2. And I just see that this is going to bridge. This is going to be the thing that kind of pivots the way that coaches in the NFL deal with players, coaches in the NFL deal with teams moving forward. Here, another 10 or 15 years, the old guard's going to go, and we're going to see a bunch of teams that are made in the image of what Dan Campbell is trying to do or what Sean McVay is trying to do. We'll see if it's successful. I don't know if it's going to be, but it is a big shift. It's no longer, I'm the smartest guy in the room, as we talked about some of these other guys, or no, I have my old ways. I'm just going to do this, and this is it, and we're going to adopt this until they die as a dinosaur. These 2 guys bring in new concepts. They bring in new theories. They bring in new guys every single year, offense, defense. They are constantly trading in and out. But what they do the most is they go find the guys that fit their scheme exactly. Jared Goff, Aiden Hutchinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown are Lions. They are like absolute Lions. So was Frank Ragnow. He's just not with them anymore. But, Lions. Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford, they are Rams. Like it just really feels like they're Sean McVay Rams, or they're Dan Campbell Lions, and it feels like the entire team is built around a specific type of player that they want them to be, and they find success with those players. So that is hard to do, and it's hard to be that passionate about it. And it's hard to kind of change the game about the way that coaching is done. And I feel like both of these two have done it, and they will continue to do it moving forward.
Well, my number one, and I'm sad I can never come up with a fun title for my first number one tier. So this one is just the guy. It is Sean McVay. He gets number one for me. I think his ego is pretty much out of the way. Like, it's a big one, like these other guys, just like all the others, but it gets out of the way. He saw the defense that stunted his entire offense, and he said, oh, let me hire the guy that's the best at that defense. And then he's kind of kept that same defensive tree for the past few years, despite losing guys, but he picked the defense because it was stopping his offense that was really good, and that has kind of become the defense that owns the NFL right now. That's like what everybody runs. So he got ahead of that curve. He has changed his entire run game 2 different times since he has become the head coach, and it's been incredibly successful every time. He doesn't get hung up on his favorite players. He just traded away Cooper, or got rid of Cooper Kupp, and said, hey, this guy that's been my dude that I love, I'm not going to hold on to him for an extra 3 seasons. I don't need to do that. I can get better. He's not stuck holding on to guys too long. He goes for it on 4th down. He was one of the least aggressive coaches of all time. He's getting better. Andy, take note. He's actually catching up to modern NFL. I just think that he does a lot of the same stuff that Andy Reid does, but I think that he's a little quicker to change. He's a little more new age in the fact that he's willing to see, okay, what I'm doing works really well, but also it might not be the best. Let me see what else is available. Whereas I feel like Andy says, what I'm doing is working really well, so let's just keep doing it until it doesn't. Then I'll change. McVay seems to be constantly chasing that perfection outside of what he does a little bit more. Defensively, he doesn't have a ton of he doesn't have a ton of preference. He just kind of gets what goes against him. So that's what put him over Andy Reid for me, is I just think he's a little quicker to adapt to the times than Andy Reid is right now. That's kind of what separated them for me.
I get it. I completely get that, Maddie, but throw mine up. Tuck. Number one with a bullet, Andy Reid, and my tier name, the best there is and ever will be. Man, Andy Reid changed the game. Like, he absolutely changed the game. There's no coach that has had the success that Andy Reid has with multiple teams in the way that Andy Reid has. Yes, Bill Belichick has more rings. He currently has more wins. Another couple of years, he won't. That's how close Andy Reid is to Bill Belichick right now. Andy just, everybody spent all offseason talking about, much like you, Maddie, here, and I'm using this as an example. A lot of people have spent all offseason talking about how Andy Reid's offense has lost its fastball. It's gone. It's all gone. None of this is going to work anymore. It's just Patrick Mahomes is barely scraping by with this team, and they're leaning on the defense a little bit more. They are leaning on the defense a little bit more, but they discount what Andy brings to the table. And what Andy brings to the table is a team that is always good to start the year, outside of 1 year in Kansas City, which, by the way, they made the playoffs. They started terribly and then turned it around and made this massive comeback. In the Mahomes era, they've always started good, and they've always finished well as well. There has not been a team that has gone to this many consecutive AFC championships or title games and had the kind of success in those title games. They have made it to 4 or 5 Super Bowls. 5 Super Bowls in the Andy Reid era, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era. I don't care if you want to lay that completely at the feet of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes isn't the player that he is without Andy Reid. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is special. He's one of one. Andy Reid helped make him that way. We talk about how, Andy let Bob Sutton run the show over here. Guess who he has a close and personal relationship with? Steve Spagnuolo. Steve Spagnuolo comes in. They change the culture. That defense was not ranked supremely high in most metrics. Yes, we remember the playoff runs and Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu and how well they played in that first year. But there were some down times there. What Spagnuolo has built, because Andy Reid has given him the reins to do so, has been a juggernaut on defense over the past couple of years. we talk about all the time how top heavy this team is. They're paying a small handful of guys an insane amount of money, and they're having to get into this. With why we spend so much time on depth charts and how far down they're having to go, and they're so top heavy, and it's going to catch up to them, and it never does. And if Andy Reid was an even marginally lesser coach, it would have caught up to them by now. It would have made a situation that was untenable. Part of the reason why they can build this team is because they know that Andy Reid can go out there and say, okay, well, we're going to change this up a little bit when we get to December. We're going to put our best foot forward when we get to the playoffs. We know we're going to be in the playoffs every year and have legs for a really frustrating regular season at times, but we know we're going to get into January, and the team that we're going to put on the field has the number of other guys down on this list that would kill to beat Andy Reid. His situational football and game planning is perfection, and there is nobody quite like him in the NFL. What he puts week in and week out when the chips are down, when it matters, when the games really truly matter, is unmatched right now. Even still, when he's still running most of his Andy stuff and hasn't really evolved very much, he is still that dude when the time comes, as evidenced by the fact that when we look back on these playoffs, you don't remember remarkable offenses, and yet every one of those defenses until they got to the Super Bowl was in hell for those games. They were not having a good time, and there were some good defenses out there on the field. So Andy Reid is still the standard bearer. The gap is closing, sure, but he is the best that is and the best that will ever be. I truly and honestly believe that. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going in there, and what he did with both of those teams, yes, he's got to be remembered for the lack of success in Philly, but he's more than made up for that with the success in Kansas City. All right. Whew. That was a lot. That was a lot right there. Tuck, do we have a consensus board up here? Consensus board.
perfect.
Oh, wow. Yes. We get Andy Reid up top. This is because I had Sean McVay number 3, that Sean McVay falls to number 2.
The slander.
Maddie. The slander. Number 3, Dan Campbell. Number 4, Kevin O'Connell. Number 5, Kyle Shanahan. Number 6, John Harbaugh. 7 is Sean Payton. 8 is Nick Sirianni. 9 is Jim Harbaugh. And 10 is Pete Carroll. Wow. It feels like I cheated a little bit there by giving 4 points to 3 different coaches there to round out the bottom.
I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect, actually. I think that is the perfect way to do the head coach rankings.
Yeah.
Oh man,
All right.
that was fun. I love that. That was good. That was difficult, but it was fun. We got
Yes. I think that might be the biggest differences that we've had in these lists for a little while there. I'm not sure. There were very few that aligned.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Dan Campbell switch was a big one. That was like you had him a lot higher than I had him, from 7 to 2. But besides that, I mean, like we were in the general ballpark. I had to cut. You had that tier of AFC West coaches, and I had them out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from that point up, besides Dan Campbell, it was all the same names. So
yeah, I think so.
But it wasn't too different.
Okay. Well, we came in at a stout 90 minutes. And this one,
beefy boy,
get out with just me and Maddie doing this solo. I'm Craig Stout. That's Maddie Lane. I want to thank all of you for listening all the way to the end here. We really appreciate you. Be kind to each other, and we will catch you later.
Beat that, only weird games.